My father's empire was split before his body was cold, but the real shock came when I, the forgotten son, inherited a locked phone that held secrets worth more than millions. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more powerful stories of betrayal, revenge, and redemption. The morning my father died, my brothers stood in his hospital room, carving up his empire while his body was still warm. I watched from the doorway as Victor pulled out his phone, already calling our lawyers about the company transition. Marcus had his laptop open, calculating property values. Neither of them noticed when the heart monitor went silent at 6:47 a.m. They were too busy planning who would get the Manhattan penthouse. "The board meeting is at 9 o'clock, Victor said, not even looking at our father's still form. "We need to secure the leadership transition before the stock market opens." Marcus nodded, his fingers flying across his keyboard. "I'll handle the media statement. We can't let this affect share prices." I stood there holding my father's cold hand, wondering when my brothers had become strangers. Edward Langston had built a $29 million logistics empire from nothing, and his sons were carving it up like vultures before the nurses even came to take him away. 3 days later, we sat in his office for the will reading. Attorney William Carver looked older than I remembered, his hands trembling slightly as he opened the sealed envelope. My brothers flanked me on the leather couch, both wearing identical designer suits that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Gentlemen," Carver began, his voice heavy with something I couldn't identify, "your father's will is quite specific." Victor leaned forward. At 28, he had our father's sharp jaw and cold ambition. "Just tell us the breakdown, Carver. We have a company to run." Marcus, 3 years younger but equally ruthless, checked his Rolex. "Make it quick. I have a meeting with our Tokyo partners in an hour." Carver read through the bequests like he was pronouncing a sentence. Victor got the CEO position and 45% of company shares. Marcus got another 45% and the $15 million penthouse overlooking Central Park. The car collection went to Victor and the art collection to Marcus. The vacation homes were split between them. Then Carver turned to me. "To my youngest son, Elias, I leave personal item number 7 Alpha." The silence that followed was deafening. I remember the way dust particles floated through the afternoon sunlight, and the way the leather couch creaked as Marcus shifted his weight. "What the hell is 7 Alpha?" Victor's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. Carver reached into his briefcase and pulled out a black phone. Not a new model, not vintage enough to be collectible, just an ordinary-looking smartphone with the single distinguishing feature, a biometric lock screen showing a countdown timer. 243 days remaining, I read aloud when Carver handed it to me. Marcus snatched it from my hands before I could examine it further. He turned it over, tried the power button, and shook it like that might reveal its secrets. "This is a joke, right? Our father left him a locked phone while we get a multi-million-dollar company." "The will is very clear," Carver said. "The phone belongs to Elias, and only Elias. Any attempt by others to possess or destroy it will result in immediate forfeiture of their inheritance." Victor stood up so fast his chair scraped against the hardwood floor. "There has to be more. What about the remaining 10% of shares? What about the Swiss accounts?" "All remaining assets are held in trust," Carver replied. "The conditions for release are sealed." That was the moment my brothers decided I wasn't family anymore. I saw it in their eyes, the way they looked at me like I was a stranger who'd stolen something from them. Within a week, they had me evicted from the penthouse. Marcus personally supervised as security packed my belongings into trash bags. "Dad was always too soft on you," he said, watching them throw my clothes into the lobby. "Now you'll learn what the real world is like." They kept everything. The family photos, my mother's jewelry that was supposed to be mine, and even my laptop they claimed was company property. All I had was my beat-up Toyota Corolla, a duffel bag of clothes, and a phone that wouldn't open. But on my 18th birthday, at exactly 6 a.m., that phone blazed to life. The lock screen vanished. A single contact appeared, Edward's legacy. My hand shook as I pressed call. My father's voice filled my car. "Happy birthday, son. You've finally reached the age. Now the real game begins." What he said next made me drop the phone, but I had to pick it back up, because the coordinates he gave me would change everything my brothers thought they knew about our father's empire. Growing up as Edward Langston's youngest son meant living in everyone's shadow. My father built Langston Logistics from a single delivery truck into a $29 million empire spanning the East Coast, while my brothers, Victor and Marcus, worked in corner offices with floor-to-ceiling windows. I spent my summers in the warehouse learning how to operate forklifts and load cargo containers. "You understand the foundation," my father told me one July afternoon. We sat on the loading dock, sharing sandwiches and watching trucks roll in from Jersey. "Your brothers see spreadsheets and profit margins. You see the people who make those numbers possible." I was 15 then, sweat dripping down my back from moving boxes all morning. "They think I'm wasting my time down here." "Let them think that," he said, taking a bite of his ham and Swiss. "The view from the top means nothing if you don't know what holds up the foundation." Our family lived in a penthouse that took up the entire top floor of a building overlooking Central Park. My mother, Eleanor, had decorated it with Italian marble floors and French antiques she'd collected during her travels. Every piece had a story. The grandfather clock from an estate sale in Bordeaux, the painting from a small gallery in Florence where she'd spent her honeymoon. When cancer took her 5 years ago, the apartment became a mausoleum. My father couldn't bear to change anything. Her coffee cup still sat on the kitchen counter where she'd left it that last morning. Her reading glasses remained on the bookshelf, marking her place in a novel she'd never finish. Family dinners became corporate board meetings. We'd sit at the 20-foot dining table while Victor presented quarterly projections on his tablet. Marcus would counter with market analysis and expansion strategies. They spoke in acronyms and stock valuations, while our housekeeper, Clara, served courses they barely tasted. "The Seattle branch is underperforming," Victor would announce between bites of filet mignon. "We should consider restructuring." "Restructuring means firing 40 people," I'd point out. Marcus would laugh, not kindly. "Stick to your video games, Elias. Leave business to the adults who understand how the world works." "He's right, though," my father would sometimes say, so quietly they'd pretend not to hear. "Those 40 people have families." But he never pushed it, never defended me when they dismissed my opinions. He'd just watch me with those gray eyes that seemed to hold secrets I couldn't decipher. The warehouse workers treated me differently than my brothers. To them, I wasn't the boss's son playing at manual labor. I was Elias, who knew how to properly secure a load, who remembered their kids' names, and who brought coffee for the morning shift when I came in early. "Your brothers never come down here," Daniel, the security supervisor, told me once. "They don't even know we exist, except as numbers on their expense reports." "Someone should know you exist," I replied, helping him check the overnight inventory. "Your old man knows," Daniel said, something strange in his voice. "He knows exactly who we are." I didn't understand what he meant then. The week before my father died, everything felt different. He seemed distracted, distant. He'd stare at family photos for hours. He gave Clara a raise out of nowhere and paid her salary 2 years in advance. He spent entire nights in his study, door locked, speaking in hushed phone calls I couldn't make out. Then came that Tuesday evening when he called me in. His study smelt like leather and bourbon, with walls lined with first-edition books he'd actually read. He sat behind his mahogany desk, looking older than his 62 years. "Elias," he said, pushing a black phone across the desk. "This is yours when I'm gone." "Dad, don't talk like that. Listen to me." His voice carried an urgency I'd never heard before. "Your brothers will get what they expect. You'll get what you deserve. It won't seem fair at first. You want to give up. Don't. I don't understand." He stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city lights. "Your mother saw it in you. The ability to see value where others see nothing. To hold on when letting go seems logical. This phone will test that. Promise me you'll keep it safe. Promise me you won't give up on it. no matter how impossible it seems. I promise, I said, confused but struck by his intensity. 3 days later, he collapsed during a board meeting. Heart attack, they said, instant. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. Standing in his empty study afterward, I held that phone and wondered what secret it contained. I had no idea it would cost me everything before revealing why I was the only son he truly trusted. The will reading happened in my father's office on a Thursday afternoon that felt like the world was ending. Attorney William Carver sat behind the same mahogany desk where my father had given me the phone just 10 days earlier. His hand shook slightly as he adjusted his reading glasses. "Gentlemen, your father's will contain some unusual provisions," Carver began, his voice carrying 40 years of legal experience. I advised him to reconsider certain aspects, but Edward was adamant. Victor drummed his fingers on the armrest of his chair. "Just read it, Carver. We have a company to run." Carver cleared his throat and began. "To my eldest son, Victor, I leave my position as Chief Executive Officer and 45% of Langston Logistics shares with full voting rights." Victor nodded, satisfied but not surprised. He'd been groomed for this role since college. "To my son, Marcus, I leave 45% of Langston Logistics shares and the Manhattan penthouse, including all furnishings and art collections contained within." Marcus smiled, already calculating the property value in his head. The penthouse alone was worth $15 million. "To my youngest son, Elias," Carver paused, glancing at me with something like pity, "I leave personal item number 7 Alpha, to be released immediately upon reading of this will." The silence that followed was suffocating. Victor's fingers stopped drumming. Marcus's smile vanished. I felt my stomach drop through the floor. "That's it." Victor's voice was dangerously quiet. "That's all he gets." Carver reached into his briefcase and pulled out the black phone. "This device is protected by military-grade encryption and biometric locks. The will specifically states it belongs to Elias and only Elias. Any attempt by others to possess, access, or destroy it will result in immediate forfeiture of their entire inheritance." Marcus laughed, harsh and bitter. "You're telling me our father left him a locked phone while we split a multi-million-dollar empire? This has to be a mistake." "There's no mistake," Carver said. "I witnessed Edward create these provisions personally. The remaining 10% of company shares and all other unlisted assets are held in trust with sealed conditions for release." Victor stood up, his face flushed with anger. "This is insane. Elias barely graduated high school. He spent his time playing warehouse worker instead of learning the business, and father leaves him some mysterious phone. Maybe it has Bitcoin on it," Marcus said mockingly. "Or maybe it's Dad's way of saying Elias gets nothing because he contributed nothing." They made me try to unlock it right there, watching like vultures as I attempted every password combination I could think of. Our mother's birthday, the date our parents met, and the company's founding date. Nothing worked. The screen showed only a password field and that countdown timer. 243 days remaining. "It's worthless," Victor declared, just like his contribution to this family. The eviction came exactly 1 week later. I returned from a job interview to find security guards stationed outside the penthouse. Marcus stood in the doorway, supervising as they carry my belongings out in garbage bags. "This is a family home," he said, not meeting my eyes. "And according to the will, you're not really family anymore, are you? Where am I supposed to go? That's not our problem. Maybe your warehouse buddies will take you in." They threw my clothes into the lobby like trash. My laptop, my gaming console, even my mother's cookbook she'd annotated for me. All declared company property or family heirlooms I had no claim to. When I protested, Victor arrived with a lawyer. "Don't make this harder than necessary," he said. "You got what father wanted you to have, a phone. Be grateful it wasn't nothing." I spent that first night in my Toyota Corolla parked behind a Walmart. The phone sat on my dashboard, taunting me with its locked screen. I tried everything over the following weeks. Tech shops, hackers I found online, and even a computer science professor at NYU who specialized in encryption. Nobody could crack it. This isn't commercial encryption, the professor told me. This is something else, government level, maybe higher. Meanwhile, my brothers thrived. Victor announced a major expansion into international markets. Marcus threw lavish parties at the penthouse, posting photos on Instagram of champagne and models. They acted like I'd never existed. I got a job at a diner, working 12-hour shifts for minimum wage. My car became my home. I showered at a gym until my membership expired. The phone never left my side, even when I had nothing else. Some nights, lying in my back seat, I'd stare at that countdown timer and wonder if my father had simply gone insane at the end. But I'd made him a promise. No matter how impossible it seemed, I wouldn't give up. My 18th birthday arrived on a Tuesday morning in October, rain hammering against my car windows. I'd parked behind a rest stop off I-95, the same spot where truckers sometimes left me leftover food when they recognized my car. The phone sat on the passenger seat, where it always did, that countdown finally reading 0 days remaining. At exactly 6 a.m., the moment I was born according to my birth certificate, the screen exploded with light. The password field vanished. A single contact appeared in the directory, Edward's legacy. My hand shook so badly I nearly dropped it. I pressed call. 3 rings that felt like 3 years. Then my father's voice filled the car, clear and strong despite being a recording. Happy birthday, son. You finally reached the age. Now the real game begins. I couldn't breathe. His voice continued, measured and purposeful. If you're hearing this, it means you kept your promise. You didn't give up. You didn't let your brothers take it. You didn't sell it when you were desperate. You held on when logic said, let go. Your brothers failed their test the moment they took what seemed valuable and discarded what seemed worthless. But you, Elias, you understood that worth isn't always visible on the surface. The phone screen changed, displaying GPS coordinates and an access code. Building 47, Langston Industrial Park, Sublevel 3. Enter code 7 Alpha Crown 1960. You have 72 hours before automatic transfer protocols activate. My father's voice continued. After that, everything goes to the backup beneficiary. Don't let that happen, son. Everything I really built is waiting for you. The recording ended. I sat there in my rain-soaked car, trying to process what I'd heard. The industrial park was 40 miles outside the city, a collection of warehouses my brothers considered our least profitable venture. They tried to sell it twice, but my father had always vetoed the decision. I had half a tank of gas and $17 to my name. The drive took an hour through morning traffic. The industrial park looked abandoned when I arrived. Weeds growing through cracked asphalt, most buildings dark. Only building 47 showed signs of life. A single security booth was manned by someone I recognized immediately. Daniel, the security supervisor from the main warehouse, sat behind bulletproof glass. He looked up from his newspaper and smiled. Right on time, Elias. Your father said you'd arrive this morning. Daniel, what are you doing here? I thought you worked downtown. He slid a key card through the window. I work where I'm needed. Your father reassigned me here 3 years ago. Been waiting for you to show up. You knew about this. I know enough. Building 47, Sublevel 3. The elevator's through the loading dock. Your card will activate it. The building's interior contradicted its rundown exterior. Clean hallways, modern lighting, and subtle security cameras tracking my movement. The elevator was hidden behind what looked like a maintenance panel. My key card opened it, revealing a decent pad that went deeper than any normal basement should. Sublevel 3 required the access code. My father's voice had been clear. 7 Alpha Crown 1960, the year he was born. The heavy door unsealed with a pneumatic hiss. What I found inside changed everything I thought I knew about my father. The room was massive, easily 3,000 square feet. Screens covered the north wall, displaying logistics networks I didn't recognize. Routes through Syria, Somalia, and Venezuela. Delivery confirmations in languages I couldn't read. The east wall held servers humming quietly, their lights blinking in patterns that seemed almost alive. A single desk occupied the center, polished wood that I recognized from my grandfather's old study. 3 items waited on its surface: a leather journal, a laptop, and a framed photo of my mother holding me as a baby. The journal was in my father's handwriting, dated the week before his death. Elias, if you're reading this, you've discovered what Langston Logistics really is. The company your brothers inherited is real, profitable, and completely legitimate. It's also a cover. For 23 years, I've used our legitimate shipping routes to move something far more valuable than commercial goods. I sat down hard, continuing to read. The Langston Foundation doesn't exist on any government record. We move humanitarian aid through combat zones, medical supplies past embargoes, and educational materials into occupied territories. Every loss Victor complains about is actually supplies reaching people who need them. Every inefficient route Marcus wants to optimize is actually a lifeline to places the world has forgotten. The laptop powered on at my touch, no password required. Financial accounts appeared on screen. Banks in Switzerland, Singapore, Cyprus, and the Caymans. The combined balance made my vision blur. $400 million. A sticky note was attached to the screen in my father's handwriting. This isn't wealth, son. It's responsibility. The phone rang. Not the recording this time. A live call. The caller ID showed only Foundation Command. I answered with shaking hand. Mr. Langston. The voice was crisp, British, and professionally warm. My name is Simon Reed, Director of Operations for the Langston Foundation. Your father said you'd be calling on your 18th birthday. We've been waiting. This is really happening. All of this is real. Very real, sir. For the past 23 years, your father built the largest underground humanitarian network in the world. Officially, we don't exist. Unofficially, we've saved approximately 2 million lives across 47 countries. I stared at the screens, showing active operations. My brothers have no idea. None whatsoever. They received the company everyone can see. You received the one that actually matters. Your father designed it this way for a reason. Simon explained the test. The phone's biometric lock wasn't just encryption. It contained an AI program that monitored whoever possessed it. It tracked my choices, my survival, and my refusal to surrender despite desperate circumstances. Your brothers were tested too, Simon said. The moment they threw you out, they failed. The moment they chose property over family, they failed. But you chose to keep a promise, even when that promise gave you nothing but hardship. But I don't know how to run something like this. I'm 18. I worked in a warehouse. You know more than you realize. Those summers in the warehouse weren't random. Your father was training you, teaching you logistics from the ground up. The workers you befriended, 17 of them are Foundation operatives. Daniel upstairs runs our North American security division. My mind raced back through those summers. Miguel, who taught me about routing efficiency. Lucas, who showed me how to hide sensitive cargo in plain sight. Sophia, who explained how to forge shipping manifests. They weren't teaching me to be a warehouse worker. They were teaching me to be a smuggler. Pull up file designation Crown 7 on the laptop, Simon instructed. The file opened to show corporate structure documents. My name was listed as the majority shareholder of Langston Logistics, owning 55% of all shares. That's impossible. The will said 10% was in trust with conditions that triggered today. Your father wrote 17 different versions of his will, each designed for different scenarios. The one your brothers saw was specifically crafted to test all 3 of you. They received their 45% each, believing they'd won. You received 10% hidden in trust, plus another 45% hidden in shell corporations that just transferred to your name. I own the majority of the company as of 6 o'clock this morning. Yes, your brothers just don't know it yet. Simon continued explaining. Every inefficient route my brothers complained about was actually a Foundation supply run. The warehouse workers they wanted to fire were operatives. The buildings they wanted to sell were safe houses and distribution centers. Last month alone, Simon said, we delivered chemotherapy drugs to children in Syria, water purification systems to villages in Bangladesh, and educational supplies to refugee camps in South Sudan, all hidden within legitimate shipping orders. How did my father fund all this without anyone noticing? Brilliantly. He skimmed from profits using methods your brothers never thought to examine. They focused on the big picture while your father worked in the margins. A percentage here, a rounding error there. Over 23 years, it added up to $400 million. The phone buzzed with an encrypted message, bank confirmations, asset transfers, legal documents, everything shifting to my name in real time. There's one more thing, Simon said. Check the bottom drawer of the desk. Inside was another phone, identical to mine but unlocked. The contact list read like a directory of global power. Senators, ambassadors, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and foreign ministers. Your father had allies everywhere, people who knew about the foundation and protected it. They're waiting to hear from you. What am I supposed to tell them? That Edward Langston's son is ready to continue his work. But first, you have a board meeting to attend. Board meeting. You're the majority shareholder now. Your brothers called an emergency session for tomorrow morning to discuss third-quarter projections. They have no idea what's coming. I looked around the room at the screens showing active missions, at the servers humming with secret purpose, at my mother's photo on the desk. My father hadn't abandoned me. He'd given me a test, and I'd passed. Simon, how many people know about this? 43 Foundation operatives worldwide, another 100 or so allies in various governments and corporations. And now you. My brothers are going to fight this. Let them try. Every document is legal. Every transfer is legitimate. Your father spent 3 years with the best lawyers in the world making sure of it. Tomorrow, I would walk into that boardroom, not as the forgotten youngest son, but as the majority owner of everything my brothers thought they controlled. The boardroom at Langston Logistics hadn't seen drama like this since my father collapsed 3 months ago. I arrived at 8:55 a.m., wearing my father's Armani suit, which Daniel had kept safe in Building 47. My brothers were already there, Victor at the head of the table, Marcus reviewing quarterly reports on his tablet. Security. Victor shouted the moment I walked in. Remove this person immediately. Sit down, Victor. I placed the legal documents on the polished table. I'm the majority shareholder of this company, 55% as of yesterday morning. The security guards hesitated, confused. Marcus grabbed the papers, his face draining of color as he read. His hands actually shook as he flipped through the pages. This is impossible. The trust conditions were sealed. We would have been notified if anything changed. The conditions were sealed from you, not from the executors. The transfer happened automatically on my 18th birthday when certain requirements were met. I took my father's seat at the head of the table. Carver confirmed everything this morning. Would you like to call him? Victor's face went from red to purple. You manipulated father. You tricked him somehow. We'll contest this in court. Go ahead. Father used the best lawyers in the country to make this ironclad. But while you're wasting money on legal fees, let me tell you what's going to change around here. I didn't fire them. That would have been petty revenge, and my father taught me better than that. Victor was actually excellent at running day-to-day operations. Marcus had a gift for public relations and market expansion. They just needed to understand what our company really stood for. 15% of all profits will now go to humanitarian logistics development, I announced. We're also promoting 17 warehouse workers to management positions, effective immediately. You're insane. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. Those people don't have MBAs. They don't understand business. They understand it better than you think. They've been running parallel operations for years, operations that saved lives while you counted profits. Over the next 6 months, I revealed the foundation's existence to my brothers, piece by piece. Not because I trusted them, but because the work was too important to keep completely hidden. They needed to know why certain routes couldn't be optimized, why certain workers couldn't be fired, and why some shipments that looked like losses were actually our greatest victories. The moment that changed everything came when I showed Victor footage from a refugee camp in Jordan. Children were receiving medicine we'd smuggled through 3 war zones, hidden in shipments of automotive parts. That little girl, I pointed to a child on the screen, has leukemia. The chemotherapy drugs we delivered are keeping her alive. That's what our inefficient Route 7 actually does. Victor stared at the screen for a long time. Father authorized this. Father built this. Every loss you complained about, every inefficient decision you questioned, it was all to save lives like hers. It took a year before Marcus came to my office, the same one where the will had been read. "I'm sorry," he said, and seemed to mean it, "for everything, for how we treated you, for not seeing what Dad saw in you." "He saw potential in all of us," I replied. "You and Victor got the visible company because you could run it efficiently. I got the phone because he knew I could survive without the wealth. We all got what we needed to become who we were supposed to be. But you got more. The money, the control, the real purpose." "No, Marcus. I got responsibility. Every decision I make affects thousands of people you'll never meet. Families in war zones, children in refugee camps, and doctors in places the world forgot. The money isn't mine, it's theirs. The control isn't power, it's purpose." 3 years have passed since that birthday morning in my car. The foundation has doubled its reach. We've opened safe corridors in 12 new conflict zones. We've delivered enough medical supplies to stock 30 field hospitals. We've moved educational materials to over 200,000 children who wouldn't otherwise have books. My brothers now know everything and have become valuable allies. Victor handles the legitimate business that funds our work. Marcus manages our public image and government relationships. We're still not close, but we're united in continuing our father's legacy. The phone still sits on my desk, unlocked now, but still mysterious. Sometimes it receives coordinates for new missions from sources I haven't identified. Simon thinks my father programmed it with contingencies, plans that activate when certain conditions are met. We follow every lead, and they always lead to people who desperately need help. My father once told me that wealth isn't measured in what you have, but in what you can afford to give away. It took homelessness to understand wealth. It took loss to understand value. It took a locked phone to unlock my purpose. The real game, as my father said, had indeed begun, and every life we save proves I was the right player to trust with it. Fire, thanks for listening. Sparkling heart if this story moved you. Share it with someone who needs it. Drop a comment with the part that hit you most. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories.